Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there, it's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 193 of the new series of the Cognitive Podcast. Your comments are very welcome. Please feel free to comment on the blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com or to comment on our group on Ravelry, which is imaginatively named Cognitive, but don't forget that K before the knit. In the meantime, in the warm thanks department, well, first of all, as always, warm thanks to the people signing up for CFRX, that is the 10th CFR. And this week we added Lefty Rebel Knitter. Nice to see you again, Karen. Okay. You've been added to the list. And I have to also thank Stripe Pike. I've been calling her Strike Pike. I don't know why. She is sending us a free pattern, as I said last week. And I don't know. I just have a brain that goes for rhythm and rhyme more than for, literal reading. But thank you, Stripe Pike, and my apologies for getting it wrong last week. I also want to thank Jasmine Knitmore because, frankly, I always do. I feel like I'm always thanking the Knitmore girls because they make a lot of helpful comments, and I really do appreciate it. And when I was talking about not having goodie bags this year, she was listening and she just texted, "We don't need no stinking goodie bags," or something to that effect. I am very grateful to you for that, Jasmine. What is really shocking me is how much happier I am without working on them. And I do find myself thinking, well, if we have a more expensive CFR every year because we have to pay now for that conference room, that maybe I'd rather just not have the overage used on goodie bags, buying the actual bags. I do think there's something very fitting in the fact that I have a segment at the end of every episode called Minerva Gets the Last Word, and Minerva is on the bag from last year. So apparently Minerva did get the last word on the goodie bags. But Jasmine, thank you. I just needed someone to say that to me. I really appreciate it. And then, of course, we have Chris our own Cutiful Christina from Cutiful Yarns in Australia. And she was talking about the fact that we have this theme of sticking and afterthought work this year. And she said, relating to afterthought everything socks, I make my much loved brother socks twice a year, birthday and Christmas, if I can manage it. The last few pairs have been total afterthought heel ones, as I find the forethought heel with waste yarn makes little holes at the side. I would agree with this. It was off and on for me when I was making the more old-fashioned heel flap type heels, whether or not I got those little holes at the side. And she said, anyway, I knit bottom up to make the most of my yarn. I knit a long tube and I do my ribbing. And then when I have the time, I'll measure and cut in a heel. I'm very much pro afterthoughts. Now look, this woman's dyeing yarn. She knows a thing or two. Listen to her. Okay. I've also used tube knitting services for my brother's socks and done afterthought everything. Yeah, and I think the wonderful thing about tube knitting is I think all of us who are looking at aging are suddenly looking at sock machines in a whole new light. That you can either give away your whole stash and hope your socks last for the rest of your life once you decide knitting little teeny stitches is too hard, or you can get a sock machine and pick up a few new skills and go crazy. I have thought of it more than once, but I simply love knitting socks. I can't explain why. I think it's because they're so portable and the yarns are just beautiful. And I have always wanted to knit with nose hair. From the day I learned to knit, I thought that was the real thing. And just when you are thinking that Cutiful Christina is as wonderful as she can get, because remember she donated all those wonderful mini skeins last year of insanely beautiful sock yarn. Hubba hubba. Just when you think she can't do any more, she is donating some gradient skeins to CFRX. Ha ha ha. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Finally, I would like to thank the LA County Fire Department. As you can imagine, the blather will be interesting this week. All right, so as always, right under the Warm Thanks Department, we have the information on CFRX. There is a link right there that will take you to the information thread on Ravelry. You should feel free to go to that thread, read it carefully, and say, Gemma, you got X or Y wrong. You really should. You need to keep on me a little bit. Remember, I'm working full-time. I am running a farm. And did I mention the LA County Fire Department? So I may be a little distracted at times, and you should feel free to correct me where you need to. That also includes, if you send me money and I did not enter you anywhere that you can see, you should not even hesitate to say, hey, Gemma, did you catch that I paid you? I really need to know that. And I do save all the emails. When someone emails me or PayPal emails me, I immediately save that to make sure I don't miss anybody. But you should never hesitate to tell me, and I will always say, can you give me the date of your email, unless I already realize that I got it. So don't hesitate. I want to get this right, but it does take a bit of work this time of year. Meanwhile, sign-ups are just open. People are signing up so slowly. Usually I give our previous attendees the month before the new attendees. But frankly, people are just showing up in dribs and drabs. So you know what? You want to sign up? Sign up. And you can see how to do that. The cost is $30 per attendee over the age of 18. And that's all in the show notes. All right. And there's also the link from the hotel, how to get the group rate. Come on now, kids. Let's get going. And then I'm going to talk about the group projects. I haven't heard back from Potchke, but I haven't tried hard enough to contact her. I'm not going to blame her for that. I'm hoping she's going to do a little Tunisian workshop for us. We know that in group projects, we have the group knitting pattern, and you will find in the show notes the link to the free basic granny square pattern. That's from Pearl Soho. That's a really nice one. Other people have free versions of that, but I just happen to like the way Pearl Soho writes their patterns. I think they always get it right and very clear. And then there's a link to Yarnspiration's pattern for the free crossbody bag. Please be aware, for the crossbody bag, any square you want. It doesn't have to be a traditional granny square. Any square you want. I usually go for 6 by 6 inch squares, and I use an eye hook to get that. If you want to wooble, I give you the links to the free basic penguin and the basic chick pattern. And if you need the videos, I can get you the links for those too, because I believe those links are readily available. So if you want some help, some tutoring in that. If you have never crocheted, or if you're bringing a kid and they have never crocheted, this is a really golden opportunity. So all you need is a size 4, that is a G hook, and worsted weight size 4 yarn. Could not be easier, and I will help you, and I have access to all sorts of stuff that way. Finally, we are having the mini skein trade. So, you can also bring along a D as in dog hook and do the Abba's sock yarn cow, which we had a lot of fun with as a group last year. So we've got a whole bunch of potential little group patterns in crochet, and the goal here is make a little thing that you can finish fairly fast and call it a souvenir. We know how to party. I would like to remind you that we're very excited to have our vendors, Lisa Souza Yarn, in no particular order here, and Laser Sheep and Oink Pigments. We are delighted to have them coming back. They will each be donating basically the same price you pay. Something retail $30, usually that's a skein of yarn. They are the ones who will be in our big conference room, and we're just so glad to welcome them back. Please don't forget that this is a one-day event officially on Saturday. However, that is Saturday, September 28th, in fact. But those of you who've been here before, we start showing up on Friday. People go out to dinner together. People sit and crochet and knit together. A lot of people did DoorDash last year and had pizzas delivered. Anything goes. The hotel was thrilled to have us because, as one of the big guys at the front desk on Saturday night told me, wow, you guys don't bust up the place and come in drunk. No, we're really good that way. Knitters, everybody should want to host us. So anyway, please feel free to come on Friday. And then Sunday morning, we do the after breakdown. We go out to brunch, found a good place, easy to do. We have some really nice brunch places in Santa Clarita. I think we went to Eggs and Things last year. And we just sit around and talk about what can we do better next year. And so please feel free to come to any of that. We're pretty democratic at CFR. We really want everybody to have some input. Also, last year people were saying, well, I'm a newbie and I felt nervous going up to people. We can't make it easier than we do. And what I would tell you is just tag on. Just say, anybody going to dinner? And we'll say, come with us, whatever it takes. Okay, just tag on. That's what this is for. Like people said, oh, we should have a newbie mixer. I will try to talk about this somewhat in the opening moments when I'm basically standing up in front of everybody, handing out prizes and all that. I will try to come back to this. If I don't, you should feel free to mention it to me. Because I really do want the newbies to feel good. I don't want you to feel isolated and alone, but I'm not going to do a newbie mixer, but I think we may do a pick a newbie at the introductory ceremony there and let everybody just find someone to befriend. But please, the last thing I want is for you to come to a CFR and feel isolated in some way. That is not how we work. We are a love-in. Okie dokie, I think that's about all I can say this week. What is on my hooks and needles? Well, it has been high drama this week in so many aspects of my life. Weirdly, one of the high drama areas was the Woobles. So the Woobles started spitting out new kits. And that's a whole weird story that I'm not going to go into. But I follow a Woobles group on Reddit. And we all are having a lot of fun sort of keeping each other up to date on things. So I did finish Stu the Goose. Now, why you would give a goose a guy's name, not quite sure. But now these times are a little more gender fluid than they used to be. I would tend to think of Stu as a gander, but that may be some old-fashioned thinking. So we have Stu the Goose, who obviously is a they, not a him. And that kind of makes me happy, because I had to laugh when I saw it. I said, these people know about farmyard animals, then thought, or is it me, just being 20 years behind on gender fluidity? But Stu the Goose, there he is. He's from a new group they just put out called Duck, Duck, Goose, where they made two different ducks, a mallard and a lady duck, well, a brown duck. I'm thinking it's a mallard and his girlfriend. And then we have Stu the Goose. Now, the mallard is extremely easily hacked. It is the body of Gertrude the llama, but you don't do any bobble stitches, and you will get the duck body. So I think they figured that one out. So they made the goose a little bit different. He is not a far cry from the dinosaur body, but I didn't try to compare. Anyway, he was a lot of fun. He was a fairly straightforward beginner pattern, and the only trick with him is watching where the eyes land, because he is definitely irregularly shaped so that he has a tail in the back. Then I was inspired by one of my fellow Redditors. I looked at all my leftover yarn because she had done Stu the Goose in leftover yarn from her other Woobles kits. For that matter, so did I. I used up all this ton of extra white yarn I had from various kits. And so I had a whole Stu the Goose in my spare yarn there. And so he's not a kit, even though he looks like he is because he's in a t-shirt yarn. He's just leftovers. Meanwhile, I took my other leftovers and I decided to just go for Pierre the Penguin. Had a lot of blue. And in the middle of it, I thought, why would Pierre not wear a ski sweater? After all, if I go to Antarctica, to his country, I'd wear a ski sweater. He's in my country. Well, maybe he should have a ski sweater. Somehow she became Penelope the Penguin. Or they, I don't care. But I used up a lot of my leftover Woobles yarn. Again, I didn't use any new yarn on this one, which made me very happy. And then I said, it doesn't look like a ski sweater. It just looks like she's striped from the chin down. So I thought, well, if I wanted her to look like she's wearing a ski outfit. So the next thing you knew, I was in their accessories making a beanie, and it came out great. So you can see a picture of her. She's posing with the other wintry themed Woobles that I have, Ralph the reindeer, Pierre, my original Pierre, and then of course there's Penelope, the après-ski penguin, and on the other side of her, Lola the polar bear, who was a total hack. So there's Penelope. Then we had Jade. My husband is a big fan of succulents, so for our anniversary, I made him a jade plant, which is a Woobles. I hacked it. Someone kindly supplied the pattern. And so you can see Jade there. Her little leaves curled up a lot with the tension. The leaves are not hard to make. They look a lot harder than they are, but you have to be comfortable working first in the front loop of a stitch and then going back and working in the back loop to set up the next row. So everybody gets stuck on this one. If you're on a Woobles board, everybody's saying, I got stuck on Jade, I can't do it. It's not hard. You just have to be extremely literal. I would also say she gets the row numbers wrong, where she says, work row 4 in the front loops of row 3. Then she says, you're going to work the next row in the back loops of row 4. No, you're working it in the back loops of row 3. So there are a little bit of editorial problems there, but really she's not hard to make. She's very satisfying, in fact. And again, she has this separate piece that is her little pink pot. I really like that the two succulents I've made have separate pieces for the pots, because you can hack those pots. You can make them different colors and put Easter eggs in them. They could be a lot of fun. And then, yesterday was the birthday bash for the Woobles in Soho in New York City, where they used a whole warehouse, not theirs, but someone else's. I think Shopify loaned them a warehouse. And they put up this whole display of Woobles history and Woobles things, and they gave away some really cool freebies. One of them was the Big Apple kit. It's called Big's the Apple, and it's very cute. On the cover, they've got New York on one side and Paris on the other, which I thought was a really nice tip of the hat to the Olympics, which were beginning yesterday as well. It's really, really cute. Needless to say, somebody in the Reddit group said, I was there and here's the pattern. And of course, we're all frantically making it now. So you can see my Big's the Woob's birthday apple. He's a total hack in my own yarn. He's very easy to make. He's very fun to make. The only challenge is the leaf, and it's not a challenge at all. But if you're a beginner, you won't know how to do a slip stitch or a half double or a double crochet. You will only know, well, you will know slip stitch and you will know single crochet. So that stupid little leaf is the hardest part of it. I've been crocheting for 15 years. There was no hard part. So Big's the apple, and he's very, very cute. There's also a picture of him hanging out in the fruit bowl of love that is in my living room. I put all my fruit and vegetable Woobles in that bowl. And as you can see, the two bees I've made, well, they were attracted to it. In progress, I am working on the Board Silly Socks, and I'm so glad to say that, because the Board Silly Socks, I now have done the legs of both socks because I was striping them as I went, and I had two separate needles so I could do this. And now I'm down to using some hard-wearing Regia for the foot of sock number 1. When I finish it, I will just put in the waste yarn and then do the foot of sock number 2. What's really great about this is these things are great when I'm trapped in a meeting and I need something to do, because when I'm doing amigurumi with crochet, I have to count too much and I can't stay focused. So it is really wonderful to sit through meetings while knitting on the socks. Socks are good for the soul, I'm just saying. Meanwhile, no work on Vestuary or the Lakeside. Those are probably waiting for my Labor Day holiday. No work on the spinning because my allergies are crazy right now with the dryness and the heat here. So let's get on to a strategy. The strategy is landfill before purchase. I'm coming late to the environmental party. I'm ashamed to admit it, but there you have it. We knew this was a problem back in the 1970s. And yet we somehow blissfully got through the Reagan 80s, where we were all wild consumers except for a few far-sighted people like, strangely, the King of England. Who knew? Charles was saying it back then. At any rate, now I look at my son and I'm kind of ashamed. And I think, well, okay, better late than never. So I'm trying to purchase things while thinking of the landfills. And so I don't buy something unless I'm willing to stick it in a landfill. Yeah, you can probably hear that's not going to be a lot of things. So what I would tell you is a good strategy. Look at your children and think, do you want their world full of trash? What do you want to do about this? And it's not an extreme measure, but what is really disturbing is when you go on something like Instagram or any social media, but I'll use Instagram. Every third image on Instagram on my account is an advertisement for something. And it's always buy, buy, buy. And you know, there's a moment where you age and you look at all your clutter and you say, too much, and you start trying to empty things out. And I'm afraid this is what it took for me to really get clear on environmentalism, and I'm just embarrassed as heck by that. I try to be socially conscious, but this is one of my noteworthy failures in life. So early on, when Amazon introduced the Kindle, I realized I'm going to start putting my whole library on Kindles, and I'm on my third one. And I just fill them with the books, I download them and keep them there. And the idea is not to have a lot of books around my house in any other form if I can help it. And yes, I wear blue-tinged reading glasses so that I don't exhaust my eyes. But that is one example, and there's a lot of other examples. And strangely, with us, buying yarn is a pretty good example. Now, I have a terrific stash, but one of the problems is we all get consumer-driven and we stop using our stash and we start buying, and we collect stash. I don't actually have a problem with that because I think you can give it to people. And certainly as I'm aging, I'm giving more of it away. I'm looking at it and saying, do I ever expect to even use this? I don't even like it that much anymore. So I'm cool with giving it away and recirculating it. And that's what I would tell you to do, is start looking at your stuff and saying, should this be recirculated instead of thrown away? And you can try to sell it. But I'm a big fan of, look, if somebody can use it and it's taking up space in my house, it's probably just clutter at this point. And clutter is in the way, and clutter, my husband used to always say, oh, but you could sell that for X dollars. Yes, but that takes time, and I don't have a lot of time. And it fills up space, and I don't have a lot of space. Sometimes it is more of a bargain just to give it away. So, you know, I would say when you're going to buy something, look at it and think about, if I put this in a landfill, how long will it last there? And if you're using up stuff and you're thinking, oh, I need to go buy more of this, stop and think if you really do or if you have another solution. The great thing about this strategy, of course, is I'm talking to a bunch of fiber artists as I do this episode. So we already are on that path. A lot of us quilt, we use our fabric scraps, we make our own clothes. That's so good. We spin our own yarn. That's so good. That's so good. And it isn't the biggest leap, you know, to say, why is it just about yarn? And I think that really had a lot to do with me a few years ago. I can't remember if this was actually, I think this was just before the quarantine, when I dug out my old dresses that I made in the 90s, and I said, these still fit. And they looked really good. And then I said, these are 30 years old. 30 years old. What is the last piece of clothing you bought at Old Navy, Forever 21, I don't care, Macy's? What's the last piece of clothing you bought that you said this will last 30 years? Because now, at least in America, everything is down to fast fashion. Wear it, damage it, throw it away, onto the landfill. There's an enormous amount of fabric and fiber in landfills now. So again, before you look at a purchase, think about it. Can I make this? If I buy this, am I going to feel good about dumping this in a landfill? How is this going to work? Maybe there's a lesson there. Maybe that's why we don't have goodie bags this year. Although I think most of us recycle our bags quite a lot. But there you go. Please think about the landfill before you make a new purchase. People want to make things. They want to buy and sell and trade. They don't want to keep going to the store and buying stupid things. There's so many ways you could be doing this. Why create more for a landfill? Okay. Meanwhile, Shoot, I am not biking at all. That is a total lie in my notes. Where I say I'm cycling 40 minutes. I'm now running 40 or 50 minutes, I'd say most days. Every now and then my short runs go a little shorter than that. But I'm generally running close to 3 miles, and I'm approaching 4 miles on some of the runs. I'm extremely slow because I'm running uphill on gravel, dirt, and trail. There's very few moments where I'm on asphalt, and it's usually broken asphalt when I'm there. So if you see this on Instagram and you see my times, please don't judge me, no, because it has really been great. This morning was very cool. I went out and it was in the 50s. Oh, that was so beautiful. I actually wore a t-shirt to run it, well, a running t-shirt instead of a tank top. And it was such a beautiful run. When I came in an hour later, it was still below 70. Oh, it was so glorious. We have a lot more heat waves coming, unfortunately. I'm not even going to tell you what our electric bill was like this month for the AC, and there was nothing to be done. We've been mostly in the hundreds here for a few weeks. So we've got about a 5-day break and then another heat wave. We'll be heading in as we move into August. Southern California, August and September are usually the hottest months. Darn it. But we're doing okay. We're holding in through it. We're all doing okay. And my Wooble collection is exploding as a result. And I'm getting socks knitted. Did I mention that? And I am hanging on for Labor Day. Okay. But I am running. And I am surprised. I'm still doing it. And I'm running harder and more than I have ever run at any time in my training. I usually would run every other day. I'm literally running every day. I take maybe 1 or 2 days off a week, and I'm increasing. I did finally reach the moment. How far did I go? I did 3 miles, and it was surprising because it's usually an easier sort of run. It's on my second 10K training program where it's actually for 21K. It's actually for a half marathon, but it's mislabeled and they still keep selling it that way. Actually, it's free. That probably has a lot to do with it. It's a very old app, but it is still there on the App Store. And it's called Run to 10K, which is not true. So anyway, there I am. And it was run 3 minutes and then walk. I can't remember if it was 2 and 2.5, but do that 13 times. Let me tell you something. I got to the end of that, and it was on one of the hot mornings. I came in and it was like I had just simply stood under a shower of my own sweat. I was so covered in sweat. I'm going to admit it, my arms and then the fronts of my thighs were sore at the end of the day. So I am finally reaching some kind of limit. Hooray for me. Hooray, hooray. And also, Gigi Knitmore, thank you. She told me she went to see a Rolling Stones show and she said, Mick Jagger had heart surgery last year and he's up performing like a maniac. Yeah, Mick's going to live forever because that is one hard aerobic workout. He and Keith. I guess all those drugs didn't matter after all. Maybe that's what the cardiac surgery was about. At any rate, yeah, and she was saying how inspiring it was to see this guy. He's got to be in his late 70s doing this. And I thought, yeah, well, again, also it's always going to be true. Slow is better than couch. Anything you do is better than nothing. And you know, people like Mick Jagger remind me that I'm in my 60s and I go running. Let me tell you something. I know of 80-year-old runners who are marathoning. I don't plan to do it. I can't see a reason why I would run, in my case, for 7 hours. I'm so slow. I never have been able to do that kind of distance. And now the complicating issue, you think, well, I'm stronger than I've ever been. Should I do it? Complicating issue is what do I do for nutrition during the run? You run out of strength in a marathon. You literally drain everything you have. And unfortunately, everything you would eat is going to be a carb because you have to burn carbs. At a certain point, you're going to burn your carbs. And you can't eat a fat because it'll take too long to digest. Anyway, what that really means is around mile 17, if I was a guy, I'm going to crash brutally. As a woman, I'll tend to make it longer. Yes, women are better endurance runners than men. That's natural. So probably 20 or 21 in my previous marathons. But, you know, it's the nutrition aspect that keeps me from doing even a half marathon. However, I am looking forward to running for an hour or so and doing 10Ks. Enough of this madness. Remember, slow is always better than couch. I don't care what you look like in running clothes. You have to get over that ego because let me tell you something. Nobody looks good at the end of a marathon. Just nobody. You look disgusting, and if you think you look bad, you should see how you smell. Well, you won't see how you smell, but you should smell how you smell. And then there's what's going on in your shoes, not to mention your bladder and your colon. It's unbelievably challenging. Nobody who has run a marathon, nobody will tell you that they have never had a bathroom crisis. I'm just going to say. So let me tell you, there is no glory in this. You just get out there and you do what you do. And the other thing is that a lot of people say, oh, don't praise me if you think I'm overweight. And you say, you go when I'm running, because you're only saying that because you feel sorry for me. No, we're not. We're saying it because that's running etiquette. You always cheer on the other people. You always encourage people who look like they might be tired. It's not about you. It's about the fact that I'm a runner and I'm finished the race and I will circle back, stand on the side and cheer people on while I eat my orange slices, which now I can't eat because I'm a diabetic runner. Enough of this madness. Okay. In the fluffy books, our own Natty Lady has sent me a rec for a book called Roar, I think, and I have to look that one up. Right now, I am just wading through the latest Beatrice Hyde Clare mystery and looking forward to the release of the next Verity Lark. I don't like Verity that much as a character, but I just like the ongoing intertwined storylines. And I also got the new Flavia Albia, which I'm very, very happy about. And I think I finally finished the Love Takes Root series by Lynn Messina. Beatrice Hyde Clare is also by Lynn Messina. Okay. Links in the show notes. Meanwhile, something I really like, good customer service. And I know I'm woobling again, but there's a study my husband told me about when he was back getting his MBA. And it was that younger people don't care about service. They care about getting what they like, being able to find what they want. Whereas older consumers tend to be more focused on the kind of service they get. And the logic seems to be, in those days, he was getting his MBA back in the early 2000s. Older consumers generally have more fluid assets. They have more money because the kids are basically out of the nest and now they're just kind of working their way through things. They have all the clothes they need. They don't need to go buy a lot of things. They're basically buying food and house repairs and travel experiences because they don't need objects. They've accumulated them over their lifetime. Sitting here at 63, pretty true. I have to admit, pretty true, although I'm always open to pretty new yarn. And like I said, I can give away what I'm not going to use. So yes, as I've aged, I've remembered that study and thought, yes, I value customer service. And so what that means is older consumers will pay a lot more for it. This may have something to do with my Wooble addiction because their customer service was great to me this week. And I do want to give a shout out. They were giving out yesterday for their birthday bash. If you ordered anything, they were giving out free stickers. Now, these things have cash value. There are heavy-duty Wooble collectors out there. But I just wanted to see them, and I thought, oh, I can put them on my water bottles or on my computer or whatever. They were adorable. And I wrote to them and said, I ordered some things on Friday night because I was picking up some things as gifts. I'm not going to go any further on that. And I said, couldn't you please give me the freebie? And they did. So hats off to them. And hats off to, they pretty obviously know there's a whole black market in their stuff. There are people who have buy, trade, sell sites on the Wooble stuff. The patterns are always getting handed around. Someone tried to sell them to me yesterday. I started laughing because, oh, you got to be kidding. I got a whole community. I don't got to buy them if I don't want to. And also, by the way, Woobles are not the only great amigurumi out there. The internet is full of free amigurumi. And that brings up other issues in which designer is borrowing from whom that I won't touch on. But the fact of the matter is, if you're going to charge $25 to $40 for a kit, you better have good customer service. And even though the Woobles have a relatively small staff, they do good customer service. And I have to say, as I get older, I deeply, deeply appreciate that. So all I can tell you is, yeah, that goes to things like when you buy a kit, you've got all this extra yarn, enough so now I've made 2 free full-size Woobles plus a hat for one of them from their patterns for accessories, and I can keep right on going. I could make a few more if I wanted to. Your invention is required because I have all these bits of different colors. But a lot of the skills I used, I learned from the Woobles. So, I don't mean to go into praising the Woobles that much, but again, my son is now learning to do it. A lot of my patients and their kids are learning to crochet from the Woobles. there is the thirst for craft. And this is one way to satisfy it. And if you're going to go this route, there is good customer service. But I have to say, something I really like this week, I really appreciate it. I really, as I age, don't want to fuss about things. And I don't care who the company is. When they leap forward with good customer service, I will forgive a lot of mistakes. There are exceptions and nitpicks, but I'm not going to say their name. Meanwhile, and put a lid on it, we're out of our heat wave. And so that led me to consider something important. I needed to eat salmon. I want fish oil, and salmon's one of the better fish. We have a subscription for wild-caught salmon. And the great thing there is we get a box every 6 weeks of different fillets of wild-caught Soho and sockeye. I said that wrong. Coho and sockeye salmon. We get a mix of those fillets. And to be honest, they are wild-caught in Alaskan waters. And it is, because we live out in the boondocks, just as cheap to buy it by subscription as it is to go buy it in a store. In fact, it's cheaper for us not to drive. So we have a box of meats that are all grass-fed, no hormones and all that, no antibiotics. And we have the fish. And we get these boxes every 6 weeks. And let me tell you, they are amazing. So I was looking at our salmon collection in the freezer and said, I really want to use these up, but nobody felt like frying salmon. So what I did was I made salmon mousse. Salmon mousse is this wonderful thing. You can make it thick or thin, and as it sits in your fridge for a few days, it will get thicker. But, when you make it, it's a good dip. It's good to put vegetables in. You can spread it on celery, whatever you want to do with it. It's cream cheese and salmon, so it's going to harden eventually to about salmon-flavored cream cheese. You can put it on bagels and lox as a spread. And this stuff is amazing. So yesterday I was looking at all the leftover heavy cream in my fridge, which is a little unusual, but I had some. And there was a spare block of cream cheese, and the salmon mousse became salmon bisque. And if you're going to do this, the two things that are really going to help, one, an Instant Pot. But you could just as easily pan fry your salmon. I just did the Instant Pot because of the butter factor that I'll come back to. And the other thing is we have a very powerful blender. We have a Vitamix. Now the Vitamix, because the bottom doesn't come off it, when you use the Vitamix to make something real thick, you spend way too much time scraping it out of the Vitamix. However, this would be a little hard on the NutriBullet to handle. So I hauled out the Vitamix. And as I was watching the ingredients of the mousse clog up everything, the bottom of the Vitamix, which is so powerful it didn't care, it just liquefied everything, I suddenly started pouring heavy cream into it. You could use milk, skim milk, whatever you want, full fat milk. Really, it's a bisque. I'd go with full fat milk, if not half and half or heavy cream. Okay, so anyway, this is good hot, this is good cold. And I gave you my recipe in the show notes. What you're going to need for this, about a pound of salmon fillets, at least 1 8-ounce or 230-gram block of cream cheese, a tablespoon of lemon juice, a half teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, a teaspoon of capers, a teaspoon of the juice from the capers, and then I use, yes I do, 2 sticks of butter for this. And I added at least a cup of heavy cream. So you can tell this is fat central. Let me explain to you. 3 tablespoons of this and you've had lunch. Okay, so you're going to saute the salmon in the Instant Pot for about 3 minutes on each side, using 1 full stick of butter in the pot with it. And then you're going to, when you've done both sides for 3 minutes each, you throw in another stick of butter and you put the Instant Pot on manual, you close it, and you cook this for 5 minutes. And that's going to be all the liquid in the pot with the salmon. After that, you take it out and you're going to put everything in your blender. And you can add as much cream, milk, water, whatever you want. Please don't use almond milk or oat milk. Really, just don't do that. That would be an abomination. So you're just going to add as much as you want to get the consistency you want. And then you can serve it hot or chilled. This is really great. I served it to myself. I drank it right out of the blender, let's be honest here, the first day. And then I've just been spooning it out of the Tupperware all weekend, and it's been great. I don't know if you heard some noise in the background. My husband stubbed his toe, and we had a little background drama. Anyway, on to the blather. Well, happy anniversary to us. You will see the pictures of the 2 beautiful bouquets of roses I got. The champagne roses are on my desk in my office, and the red roses are on our dining room table. And it was just beautiful. It was our 32nd, and it was last Thursday, I believe. And I have to tell you, when you're aging and you've been together a long time, anniversaries get amazingly sweet and poignant. And this year was like that. It was just the greatest anniversary. And one of the things my husband was saying was how we've really worked for what we've gotten. We worked really hard. We did a lot of planning. And suddenly you kind of arrive. And he said, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for this. And I thought, yeah, this hasn't been easy, but it's certainly been fulfilling. And so we were just very, very happy. We did little things for each other. As you know, I made Jade the succulent for him. He gave me a beautiful card. I gave him a Amazon gift card because I know it's what he wants anyway. We went out for meals. They kept bringing me home takeaway food while I was working because Thursday is my late night. It was just so incredibly sweet. And then there was a fire the next day. Not us. But so there I am sitting in my study talking to a patient, and I get a call from my husband, which is odd. He knows better. Now, he had just taken our son up to a place where he could go swimming in a public park, a swim park. And he was coming home, and he saw the fire by the California 14, and he came home, and he calls me on the way home. And I didn't pick it up because I'm thinking, no, you never do that. You know better than this. And I was really surprised. And then suddenly my study door opens, and he's standing there now. I have to maintain privacy. Remember, HIPAA is really important when you work at home. So my screen is tilted away from him. So he can't see the patient can't see him. So I'm thinking, okay, he's being respectful. And I looked at him, I said, is this some kind of an emergency? I was trying not to get angry. Fortunately, I had a really good patient because he just pointed out the window and there was the fire. Very close to us. And I yelled an expletive in front of the patient. Even my husband said, whoa, don't curse. And I was like, oh my God. The patient said, what is it? And I said, it's a fire and it's right by us. And she said, go, 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 go. So that ended my patients on Friday. I only saw 2 and 10 minutes of the 3rd. And that was that. And interestingly, we said, okay, the next thing is we're going to get asked to evacuate because it was very close to the house. And so we just together worked and prioritized and just went bang, bang, bang and got everything packed. And in the midst of this, I realized I had to, of course, take care of my patients first, which means I had to write the requisite emails to our front desk saying, please cancel my patients. We have a fire. I cannot talk about this now. Please do not contact me. We are going to be in evacuation mode for a while here. And so I come out of my bedroom, my office. My husband had Minerva in her crate by the front door, not outside because it was too hot. And he was already starting to pack things. And I came out and he had the dogs crated. And so I came out and I pulled the leashes and put them on top of the crates. So those would be ready to go. And I boxed up dog food because we have like 50-pound bags. We weren't going to do that. So I boxed up dog food in some big Tupperwares. And then from there, he was yelling, okay, let's do medications. So we got all our pills and meds. And meanwhile, first thing I did was I scooped up all my tablet computers and stuff. Now, remember that big bag that I crocheted a while back, a few weeks ago? And I thought it was just a little too big, but I was ashamed to admit it. It was perfect. It was perfect. I filled that with medications and tablet computers. And yes, I did grab the socks that I'm knitting because I thought if I'm going to be locked out of my house, I'm going to need something to calm me down. And, I grabbed our passports and we realized we shouldn't have them in the house, so they'll be going to the safe deposit box at the bank this week. We learned a lot, but the interesting thing was we got it right. And it was so good because we were both yelling suggestions. So, I said, the animals, what are we going to do with the alpaca and the pony? He said, well, of course we keep them here. We have no way to transport them out, but they're actually safer here if they go to the middle of their corrals. And he's been cutting down all the weeds for weeks now. So the corrals are perfectly safe. Nothing's going to burn. So you just have to make sure they have a lot of water in the middle of the corral so they can go to the middle of the corral and nothing will touch them. So he went out and checked on the water for all of them to make sure that was good. And meanwhile, I packed a suitcase for my son, as I'd already done mine. And we were putting things out on our front patio in the shade. because the car was too hot. So I went out and basically cooled out the car while we were packing so that if we had to move things to the car, we could do it really fast and the car would be cool enough. We didn't want to melt computers. Anyway, so this was an exciting hour. And meanwhile, on Watch Duty, the app we use to follow the fires out here, I was watching the fire. It was the Victoria fire. And they got it under control relatively fast, although it burned extremely high and hot. We went down and looked at where it was yesterday. And it was just one of these, oh boy, I can't believe someone was this stupid kind of fires. How do we know it burned high and hot? Because the tops of all the junipers burnt. All the junipers scorched and burned. They had no leaves. And seriously, those poor people, it was a guy using his property to store junk, and it lit in there. I have never seen the like of this. His water tank was burnt black. I've never seen a metal water tank turn that color. So the heat must have been insane. There were cars black and everything else. My guess is he was trying to light up some trash, which was just the dumbest idea. His neighbors must be furious. It came right up to some of their front doors. Those poor people, because it crossed the only road that is an exit from their property. So they were going to be trapped there. And the firemen of LA County, I just thank you a million times over, because they did their jobs. There were no houses burnt. The guy who seems to have started it on his property or allowed it to start on his property, I don't think he has. He had a house there way back. It didn't look touched, but boy, it all got close. So the amazing thing was, when it was all over, I realized we've grown up a lot. I remember how we both used to be useless in a crisis. Yeah, well, not anymore. We did a pretty good job. And of course, the huge advantage, we were going to have a lot of time to get out. And so we could do things in a certain order. And the order became fairly readily apparent right away. So it was actually not the worst experience, although I think we were both kind of shaky all afternoon. My husband took it out by going out in the intense heat and hacking down more weeds. Way to go, because really we have to do it. Also, right after this, ironically, goes to the mailbox. Sitting in the mailbox is a letter 1 month late from the fire department saying, you passed our check for weed compliance. Your property looks fire safe. It was dated the beginning of June. Why they only mailed it now, who really knows? Okay, and the pup date, well, the dogs are just fine, and they're spending a lot of time indoors with us because of the heat. And we're all happy about that since they got groomed, and most of the huge dog hair tumbleweeds are now gone. The Roombas are not a disaster to clean every day. It's really been nice. Meanwhile, Project Cookbook, yes, I had that salmon mousse just sitting in my paper card file in the kitchen. One of the benefits of Project Cookbook, I'm just going to say. On the rest of the page, well, you can see the community resources, the books that I've used for patterns, my favorite resources to buy when I'm supporting my knitting. I haven't had to buy anything in a long time. All our sponsors from previous CFRs are on that list, though, so I do want to refer you to that. And, of course, the list of links to various skills and techniques. On the calendar, you can see all the events that go on in the Santa Clarita Valley in our stitching world down here, which takes me down to Labor Day. I have the week of Labor Day off to celebrate my 64th birthday, yay! And to finish a bunch of projects that have been sitting around way too long. After that, I have September 27th, Friday off, so that I can have an extra day for Cognitive Fiber Retreat 10. And it will be at the Courtyard by Marriott in Valencia on September 28th, 2024. And there's another link there to the information thread. And finally, I don't know what I'm taking off for Thanksgiving. I don't think I've applied for that, but I'm certainly looking forward to Romuel starting December 21st, and I'm not sure how many days I'm taking there either. Minerva gets the last word, and I have to say, Minerva was deeply offended by J.D. Vance's sarcastic comments about childless cat ladies. And she was appalled because he said that he has something against childless cat ladies. And Minerva would like everybody to know that she's got something against J.D. Vance's obvious misogyny. Yes, I'm sorry, I try to stay away from the politics, but that comment was totally offensive. And I'll tell you why, and this is important to me as a psychologist. Do you know who the happiest demographic in America, in the United States, You know who that is? Yeah, it's the same people. It's the same people. Women who do not marry. They are of childbearing age, pardon me. Unmarried women of childbearing age are the happiest Americans. And it's curious because J.D. Vance says that people should not be able to get out of marriage even if there's physical abuse in the marriage. Do the math, kids. Sure, women can be physical abusers. Do the math. They're not going to be able to do the damage that male abusers do, and you can go look up the statistics. Oh, yeah, by the way, happy little statistic they teach us in domestic violence. When a man hits a woman in America, there's a 70% chance he's going to kill her. 70%. If your husband hits you, you are going to die. But J.D. Vance, the guy who hates child-free women, and their cats too, I guess, he thinks they shouldn't be able to get out of marriages. Yeah. Okay, look, I try not to get into politics, but I'm at the end of my rope on that one. Minerva was so upset. I spent hours comforting her, and we had long talks about if anything happens to me, the boys are going to take care of her. If anything happens to any of the boys, she will always have a place with me. I had to really console her because she's just terrified now that there's going to be this Republican government that forces women to give up their cats, and they'll be in shelters and homeless, and I think she really doesn't want me to adopt anymore at my current age. I suspect I would only adopt an elderly cat. But Minerva and I have a deal that she is now my resident baby cat, and we won't be adding any more. And so Minerva wanted you to see a graphic that came across our feeds, and it is cats against J.D. Vance because he would be a catastrophe. And of course, this ad was paid for by Childless Cat Ladies of America and also the Neuter Vance 2024 PAC. So there you go. That is not Minerva on the meme. That white spot on the chest gives it away. But she totally supports that. And on that rather disturbing note, I'm going to say, talk nicely to your cats, calm them down, let them know they're safe no matter what. And meanwhile, I've got something against candidates who are openly coming out against women. It's just astonishing to me that this could even happen. Oh dear, I'll stop. It's too upsetting. In the meantime, everybody remember we are a community. When we support the community, we support each other, including supporting the childless cat ladies, I'm just saying. And on that idea, please remember, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.